Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson here with Jesse Garcia, who stars as Richard Montañez in the film Flamin Hot, inspired by the Frito Lay executive's real life. Jesse, just to start things off, how many Cheetos have you consumed since you began working on this film? And were they all over the set, or did they keep it under control for you?
I love answering that question when Eva's around because it's I don't really eat snacks like that. I had 5 hot Cheetos during the production of the movie, and that was it. I've never, like, it was just for that one scene where I had to taste one off of the line. And I've haven't didn't have one before, and I haven't had one since.
Wow, I wish I had your self-control. This is such an inspirational story. I hadn't heard it before. Had you heard about Richard before the opportunity came along to play him?
I had heard about him. I heard about him. I think probably I may have, like, in passing, heard about it before. I saw it in the trades few years before the movie actually came up. But I was always like, man, that's an amazing story. It's gonna make a really great TV show or movie. And I'm like, whoever gets that, whoever gets that part is gonna be a huge star. No, I'm just kidding. But
It's happening though. It happened.
yeah, no, I'm grateful. No, it's a powerful story, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
And he grew up in Southern California. I understand you grew up in Wyoming, so they were different experiences. But what could you relate to about his life and experience to pull from and relate to this character?
A lot, actually. I grew up in Wyoming, like you said, and we didn't have really any money. Like, my dad worked construction, he worked on ranches, he did a bunch of, like, he put himself through school to do body work on cars and stuff like that. So he was always into cars, and my family did whatever they could to survive. And my mom was was a housekeeper in lots of hotels, and she I remember she used to I remember vividly, it was like a core memory, that she used to give out sample chocolates at the grocery store. Like, that was like one of her side gigs, where she could bring us and we could be in the grocery store and kind of sit there with her and try not to get into trouble. And but she would give out samples, and that was part of her thing too. So his Richard's journey from not really having any money and kind of like not um coming from much is parallels mine. Like, I've, even through a little bit of success of through my career, there was a period of time where I was couch surfing, and then I was still working here and there, but I was subletting out my apartment, making just enough money to have a bit of money for gas and to pay for rent on the apartment that I couldn't stay in, and sleep on some friends' couches to and feed my dog. So it was an interesting time until I kind of finally found my footing again, and made some side hustles and eventually started working again.
And he also had to sort of blend. I mean, he was made fun of for what he brought to school for lunch, and then he sort of turned that into a side gig. He was always hustling, even from a young age. I remember being young and just trying to fit in was hard enough. I have family, and my aunt and my cousins live in Wyoming, so I also know it's very white. So I
Yeah.
imagine that was an extra sort of thing to just sort of have to deal with.
Yeah, I didn't really. There was definitely discrimination, but I used to get picked on a lot when I was a kid, and I wasn't. It was funny because the kids would pick and choose the time that they would want to pick on me, which is very odd. It's kind of really messes with the psyche. So it was, I I didn't even. I'm putting this together right now as we speak. I learned to deal with rejection when I was a kid. You know what I mean? Like, some days they would like me, some days they wouldn't, and the same thing with my sister. Um, uh, and my so yeah, so, like, I did get picked on quite a bit, and I don't know if it was necessarily to do with because I'm Mexican, but it was just this tiny town of 800 people, and it's just mirrors. We're all mirrors of each other, and for some reason I was the mirror that got picked on and rocks thrown at and gotten in fights and all the things. But the funny thing is, like you mentioned, the Richard make taking food to school. My parents used to sell empanadas and burritos to people too to try to make ends meet. And I remember being home at night helping them kind of stuff empanadas and so that they could sell food the next day.
Talk about meeting Richard and what that was like for you. Did he give you any tips, or did he just sort of let you do your thing?
It was interesting meeting him because obviously he's alive. So for me to play him and he's still alive, I needed for me, the main purpose of the meeting was to make sure that he felt comfortable. Him and Judy and the family felt comfortable that we weren't going to do them dirty. You know what I mean? Like we were going to tell their story and we weren't going to take advantage of them and make sure that we got it right, because that was very important to us. And when I got to their house and I walked in their door, and it was kind of like, Richard sizing me up a little bit. You know what I mean? Okay, this is the guy. I don't really know who this guy is. People like our circles touch, but we've never met. And so I was like, it was a bit of like, it was funny. I could see it, but they were very, very kind, and they had food prepared. And but the stuff that I got from him and Judy was like nicknames and stuff that he might have carried in his pocket, and kind of a few stories and slang that they used throughout the decades, because we went 4 different decades, and as you know, slang and vernacular changes throughout time. So it was little things like that would add details to the movie that would make it authentic.
When I spoke to Eva Longoria, who directed the film, of course, she said there was a pretty extensive casting process, but it was your ability to play him in all stages of life, particularly the vulnerable moments with Judy at home, that earned you the role. What was the most challenging part for you about playing someone who is progressing over a series of decades?
It's funny because probably a lot of actors will tell you this, even Eva will tell you this about directing it, is that when I read the script, I go, oh, this is mine. I just need to put in the work, because I was able to kind of fall into the accent. I was able to, I've been working, I've been doing this for 23 years plus. And everything that I had been doing up until we shot the movie, like I had done bits and pieces of this movie for the past 20 years. And this was the first time that I had my chance to show everything. I had the chance to show the comedy, the drama, the vulnerability. I'm kind of like the tough, vulnerable guy was been my bread and butter for the past 23 years. But for me to be able to do the quirky, and improvise on set and work with Eva and the other actors and everybody in the crew, there was an ease about it, that everyone worked together. There was really only kind of like 1 or 2 moments when we were shooting, as far as the acting stuff, that were challenging scenes, and one of them didn't even make the movie just because it didn't fit. But for me, the toughest part of the movie is that, and I don't know if I've talked about it as much, but was I never had imposter syndrome about the movie, right? I always felt like I was meant to do this movie. And it's a big undertaking, because I'm number 1 on a call sheet, and I'm paying tribute to a man who's still alive, and we're telling his story, but we're also telling our version of from his perspective. And when I met him, I told him, like, about right toward the end of the meetings, like, I just need you to know that I'm not going to be doing an imitation of you. I'm not going to be mimicking your walk or any of that. I'm going to be telling my version of your story the best I can, and with the most honor that I can. And then we will be, because it's a movie, we're going to be like improvising some things him and Judy may or may not have said, right? Like babe, or small things like that. It's like, you guys may or may not have said that, but it's just part of the theatrics of it, the embellishing, like throwing flowers, and you know what I mean? It's like some of it that it just makes the movie entertaining. But for me, the hardest part for the whole process was that that the mental health aspect of it is that it's a huge undertaking, you know what I mean? And nobody knew. Eva didn't know. Annie caught a glimpse of it one day, that I had to make sure to take care of myself, that I wasn't gonna have a breakdown on my own. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't just like, there was big speeches that I had to get right, for otherwise the rest of it doesn't work. So it was like 3 or 4 kind of like little monologues. Um, I had to get them right, and I always felt like I could do it, but there was like moments where I'm going like, "Fuck, this is a lot." You know what I mean? And it's just it's the hardest movie, the hardest project that I've done. That there was a lot riding on it. We didn't have the luxury to fail on this movie. We had to get it right, and but I also kind of approached it from a healthy standpoint. It's like I know what I'm doing is right. I know what Eva's doing is right. We're all supporting each other. It's just still, even though it's still a lot, you know, and I had to take care of myself. I worked out every day. I kind of meditated every day, and I took time and space to kind of recalibrate for the next day. But every day there was like a little moment where I'm like, all right, you know, let's not go over that edge and fucking lose it. You know what I mean?
I love that you said it was, you felt like this is mine, because Eva said the same thing to me when and I know that she worked really hard to get this film just to be able to direct it. What was working with her like as a director? She's got so much energy and hype about this movie. She's fun to talk to about it. And what was your experience with her?
Um, it feels like we're soulmates. Like we're cosmically, we'd known each other for a long time. Like, because our circles have touched. We've known the same, and we've met and we've kind of said hello, but we've never really had a conversation. And we realized when we were decided, you know, they picked me to be a part of the movie, and we started talking. It's like we have so much in common, and we are able to speak the same language. And we could be across the room in the factory, and we'd go for a take 2, and I would look at her, and I would kind of do that, and she would nod, and we would go, okay, let's go again. Right. So it's almost telepathy, how we would be able to speak to each other. And if there were days where I'm like, I was struggling a little bit, and I go, just let me figure this out. And her and I would rewrite every day. If like there was something wasn't working in the script or the scene, we would kind of go over something, like, it's like, all right, what about this? And we would kind of like work the scene out, and we trusted each other. There was so much trust there that we would trust that with the help of each other, we would find the way. And it was really, you know, I've had to have that amount of trust in each other with somebody else. It's not uncommon, but it's rare. You know what I mean? To be able to feel safe with each other, feel safe in a work environment where you have to feel free to be an absolute idiot, you know, to fail miserably, and to think that it could fail miserably. Like the takes that you're doing is like, I'm trying something. It might work, it might not. And if it does work, it's great. If it doesn't work, it's like, cool, we got another take. Let's go.
And you get to show off some comedy chops, which you don't get to do a lot on screen, at least. So is it fun to balance that drama and comedy and be able to get to do both?
Yeah, you know, it's fun. My initial training was comedy. I was doing sketch comedy. I was doing improv, and maybe the way I look, you know what I mean? What, whatever it
I
is.
don't know about that.
Yeah, I get a lot of from the majority of my career, I got a lot of, you know, either action shows or tough guys or something like that. But I always kind of like to add a little bit of levity. You know what I mean? Add some humor in there somewhere. And I finally, like I said, I finally got the chance to play the comedy, to play the lightness of it. Because if you look at any family, you know what I mean, despite whatever challenges there are, there could be an implosion of everything that's going on, but for some reason someone makes a joke and everyone's laughing in the middle of this, you know, this traumatic moment. So there's always humor there, and it was fun to put all of that stuff in there throughout the story.
I mean, speaking of your comedy background, you were part of the Broadway show, the Pee Wee Herman Show on Broadway. Paul Rubens passing earlier this year, so I just want to touch on that. What was that experience like for you doing that?
Uh, when I got the audition for that, I called my manager. Go, is Paul Rubens actually doing it? Because this was 2000. I think we did the first run in LA in 2009, right? The winter of 2009. And she goes, yeah. And I just don't do plays because I'm in LA and there's not really much here for theater. There is, but there's not. It's TV and film here. And I go, cool. Yeah, I'll audition. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? And I eventually, through a couple of auditions, I got it. And through one of our first rehearsals, probably the first week in, I'm doing the gag where he's letting the air out of the balloon, and it's absolutely ridiculous. While we're rehearsing that scene, I'm saying my dialogue, but in my head, I'm going, I'm doing a scene with Pee Wee Herman right now. And we're this close to each other. I'm like, I'm doing a scene with Pee Wee Herman. And of course, like I'm of the generation where I grew up watching the Pee Wee Herman show.
Yeah.
Saturday morning with Saturday morning cartoons.
And Pee Wee's Big Adventure was
Pee Wee's
one
Big
of my favorite
Adventure.
movies.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. Yeah. So and he's one of the sweetest human beings ever. I mean, he would write to me and send me a video every birthday, and the last one I got from him is super, super sweet, and like I didn't know. I didn't see it coming. Like a lot of people.
And you got your big break with Quinceañera back in 2006. That sort of launched your career. The film won the Grand Jury Prize and the Audience Award at Sundance. You won Best Actor at the Elmo Awards. When you think back about, just being a kid in Wyoming, what sparked that? Like, what made you think this is what I want to do? Was there a actor that you wanted to be like? Was there a movie you saw? What made you want to get out here?
I never wanted to be an actor when I was a kid. So from being in Wyoming, the programming that I was exposed to was blue collar work. You know what I mean? Construction job, move up the ladder, maybe get a business someday. So being part of an actor and being part of the business was not even close to being on my radar. When I was in school in Nebraska, so I ended up getting, it's a random fun fact, but I had a cheerleading scholarship. And I had the year that I was at Nebraska, I met a friend of mine the short story is that she convinced me to move to Atlanta with her at the end of the school year to study acting. And I always thought it'd be fun to do plays, but my time was always be occupied with cheerleading stuff, right? I was either training or we had philanthropy stuff or we had games or practice. I just didn't have time to do any kind of like extracurricular plays or anything like that. So when she kind of convinced me to do it, I moved to Atlanta a week after we had the conversation. I had a conversation with the teacher, Judson Vaughn, in Atlanta. A week later, I was there and started acting classes that week. So that was the kind of like the genesis of me deciding to be an actor. But I don't like, I've had a couple of interviews recently, and I think about it, it's like a lot of the people who I admired subconsciously, like Robert Rodriguez, who I love, El Mariachi, and then La Bamba and all the cast from La Bamba, and like and now a lot of these people I've gotten a chance to work with, or they are their friends in real life or their mentors in real life. It's very surreal. It's just, this business is so funny.
La Bamba, one of my favorite movies as well. It's crazy the turns you can take in life, but I'm happy you ended up where you did. And I love this movie, and congratulations on an incredible performance. Anyone who hasn't seen it, check out Flamin Hot. It's streaming right now on Hulu and Disney Plus. And Jesse, thanks so much for chatting with Gold Derby today.
Oh, thank you so much. I had fun.